Bienvenidos, Ushamdid, and welcome Anne Arundel Community College learners from the Spring 2023 semester taking the CTS-233 Section 400 Network Programmability course. This is the Cisco Networking Academy's DEVASC 200-901 Certification Exam Preparation course, and in this, our final video on Lab 3.3.11, where we're diving deep into software version control with Git, we're going to be covering Part 7 of the lab. Now, up until this part of the lab, everything that we've been doing has been isolated on the DEVASC virtual machine. And while Git is a great utility to have on that virtual machine, it doesn't really allow us to have true collaboration from maybe say a centralized source like a GitHub or a GitLab or a Stash from Atlassian. So this video is going to be all about how we can leverage GitHub in order to sort of truly do some collaborative work using Git and GitHub. Remember, Git is not GitHub. And Git is not GitLab. Git is its own little software version control program that is on the Linux operating system. And again, you can get it on the Mac as well. So let's go ahead and dive in. This is an extremely important portion of the lab because in one of the projects, you're going to be collaborating with the learners on your team, and this is how you're going to get it done. So it asks you to go ahead and create an account on GitHub, which you should have done. If you haven't, or I should say if you have, you would go ahead and click sign in. If not, you would sign up. So there's my username, my password. I highly recommend that you turn on the two-factor authentication that is being used, right? And so you can see I'm now logged in. So they want us to create a new repository. You can see top repositories. I'm just going to say create new. So it's my username, and then the name of the repository is going to be devasc-study-team. So a description here could be, from lab 3.3.11, part number 7, test repo. All right, so we've got that in there, and they want, for the description, they want you to put in here, working together to pass the DEVASC exam. Is it going to be public or is it going to be private? So you choose who can see and commit to that repository. So I'm going to click on private. That way, not anybody can just dive in there. Because again, if it's public, anybody on the internet is going to be able to see that repository. All right, so initialize this repository with, maybe we'll want to add a README file that kind of gives some instructions on, description as to what this is doing. We're not going to have a license. We're not going to add the README right now, but you could. And let's click Create Repository. All right, so here we are in the DEVASC Study Team repository. You can see that they're going to give you some commands that you could run to create the new repository or to push it, right, from the command line. But we're going to take a look at these commands from the perspective of the lab. So here is the path to my Git repository for the teammates that I could be working with here in the class. All right, so now we're going to go back to the DEVASC virtual machine. And it's on this virtual machine where we're going to go ahead and here we are. So we're back on the DEVASC virtual machine, and they want us to get into, where are we at? The Git intro. So we're here in the Git intro directory. We are on the primary branch, and they want us to make a new directory here called DEVASC Study Team. Now, they have us make the directory. Then they have us cd into the directory to do the git init, and they want us to copy the original devasc file in there. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll say make dir devasc study team, right? So we're naming it the same thing that we named the repo that we created on GitHub. All right, so let's go ahead and cd into DEVASC Study Team. Now we're going to use the copy command to get the devasc.txt file from the get-intro. And to do that, we use the 2 dots. Remember, that's the parent directory. So it's the directory immediately above us. What's up in that directory? Well, if I do an ls, you can see we've got the devasc study team directory, and then we've got the devasc.txt file. So we're going to copy from the directory above us the devasc.txt file. And again, I'm going to put it right here. I'm dumping it into my current working directory. So say pwd, right? You can see where we're located in that new directory we created. Here is a list of what we have in here. Here's a long listing of what we have in here. And now we're going to initialize, again, this is locally on our virtual machine. I'm going to say get init. Now, you can do the init and the creation of the file, or I should say, better to say, you can do the get and create the repo all in one command. If I was to say get init in the name of the repo, but here we've broken it apart. All right, so we have a new git repo, and there it is. We've got our .get hidden file. So what are the settings that we have here? So let's say git config --list. And so these were those global configurations that we had set up. Now, something we're going to have to change here, right? Because we want to make sure that the user.name is the same and matches our GitHub credentials, right? And so that is my username in GitHub, Travis P. Bonfili, but the email address, that is different. So let's go ahead and say git config --global. And we want user.email is going to be travispbonfili@gmail.com. So let's do a git config --list to check those global configuration settings, and everything looks good from here on out. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to point get locally here on this virtual machine. I'm going to tell it, hey, let's add this remote repository that I've created in GitHub so that I can see what's going on there. So I'm going to say git remote add origin, which is where that source is at. And so actually, I'm going to pull back there. This is where you would share, because again, this is private, right? And so I can actually just click here to copy that. Now, I don't know how this is going to work on the Mac trying to do my copy. Let me do this here just to see if, again, it doesn't like that Clover C once I move back to the virtual machine, but let's see if when I copy it, all right, it worked like a champ. So there we go. And again, I'm basically adding the remote repository where we would put sort of the main team file to my local virtual machine so that I could work on things here and then maybe push those changes up to the main server because we're, again, up to GitHub because we're collaborating. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. Now we may run into an issue. Okay, it doesn't look like we ran into an issue here. All right. So we've added that remote. I thought it might prompt for a password or something like that. So how do we validate that we're actually good here? Let's say git remote --verbose. And there we go. So you can see it sees, we can fetch from there or, pull things from there, and then we can push. We could push things there. All right, let's see what git log shows me right now. All right, it says fatal. Your current branch master does not have any commits yet. So the primary branch doesn't have any commits since we've added this, excuse me, since we've added this structure that we have here and this file, this devasc file. So let's go ahead and say git add devasc.txt to move it, right? If I was to come back, let's do a quick git status. If I do a status, you can see, hey, you did a git init in here, and this is you got a git repo is set up, but we've got this file in the directory where the git repo's at, and it's not in the staging area, right? It's in the working area. So let's go ahead and say git add devasc.txt, and then let's go ahead and let's get that committed. Git commit -m, and I'm just going to put in here, and they want us to say, oh, we just added it to this. So added devasc.txt to the new DEVASC study team directory. All right, so we're going to add that in there as a comment to our commit. So now if I say git log, right? So take a look, right? We're in a new repo. So you might be wondering, well, why aren't we seeing all that stuff that we were doing prior in the previous labs? Well, remember, we are in a totally different repo here, right? This is a different Git repo in a different directory, right? So we see the change that we made. We've made the commit. The Git log proves that. Excuse me. And then if we take a look at Git status, everything is clean, right? So we're on the primary branch, nothing to commit for this repo here. All right, so now, and actually, let me take a look at one thing. It should have had, okay, author, yeah, so there you go. So this is important right here, right? That is my GitHub username. That is the GitHub password that I use. I'm sorry, password, email that I use. And no, my password is not my username. So we've done the Git status. We can see that the working tree is clean. So now we're going to push up to the GitHub repo that file. So here I am, and you can see we could import code from another repository. So there's some things that we could do here, right? Where I want to get is to the actual repo itself. So you can see we've got actions, projects, settings. So we're going to leave it here for right now. And let's go ahead and do the push. And I'm wondering if at some point here I should get prompted for my, I've seen where I should get prompted for the password. So we're going to say git push. So what are we pushing, right? We're pushing from the origin, or we're pushing to the origin, which we've defined as that remote source. And what am I pushing? I'm pushing things from the branch here. Now, I'm wondering if the two-factor is going to cause some issues here. So what is my username, right? Well, that's Travis P. Bonfili. What is the password? It's the personal access token, I think, is where I'm going to get hung up here. So it's interesting. So it asks you for the password, but when you put your password in, and I forgot all about this, you put your password in here, and you hit enter, and it's going to come back and tell you support for password authentication was removed, right? So this is what I like to call a fortuitous failure. So I walked myself right into this, realizing that no, that's right, it's not the password. You need to generate a personal access token. All right, so we're about to generate that personal access token that we're going to need, but I want to show you this first. So in the DEVASC study team repo, if you click on settings, right, here's where you can add some collaborators in, right? So you can invite people, i.e. the members of your team that you're going to be working with here in the course. You can add them here so that they have access to this repository. Now, let's generate the personal, the personal access token. So to do that, we come up here to the user. We come down here to settings. We're going to go all the way to the bottom because this is a developer setting. And it's right here, personal access token. You've got fine-grained tokens. That's in beta, so we'll skip that. We're just going to use a classic token. I'm going to generate a new classic token for general use. And the note in here is I'll just put in here that this is the, we'll name it the same thing, DEVASC study team, right? Expiration, we'll go ahead and say that it's going to be in 30 days. Now you can define the scope of what this is going to allow. And I'm going to say full control of the private repositories. We can put the workflow, write packages, right? So you can put all of these things in here for the security. Again, for what we're doing, you're probably only going to need the full control for the repository so that you can get the commit status, deployment status, you can do the updates and things like that. So we'll go ahead. It would be nice. I don't think they have something that can click everything here. So, but let's go ahead and put all this in here. Code space, project, admin, and all of that great stuff. And I'll click generate token. All right, so this is the token, and that is what it's asking for when it says password for that username. So we just copied this token. I'm going to do this again because it seems that this works a little bit better. So we just copied it. You can see it's going to expire here. I'm going to actually revoke that token as soon as we get done with this example so that my repo doesn't get wiped out. So let's go ahead and go back. Git push origin master. So we're pushing to that origin that we defined earlier, which is our GitHub repo username, Travis P. Bonfili, F-I-G-L-I. Let's get that spelled right. Now here is where it wants the password, which is that really long token. And I'm wondering if it's echoing it because it hit it, and take a look, it hides it, right? So it's not going to echo it out for you, but that personal access token did exactly what we needed it to do. And you would share that personal access token with the rest of your teammates so that they have access to things. And so you could see here, new branch from the primary to the primary on the remote source. So let's go ahead and verify on GitHub under the repositories that we see something there. So did I push that devasc.txt file to my devasc study team? And take a look at that. And you can see 11 minutes ago, that was when we initially committed the file. You might look at this and say, wait a second, why does this show it was done 11 minutes ago when you just literally did it? Well, the reason it shows 11 minutes ago is because that was when we had done the initial commit. So let's click on the file here, devasc, and you can see there's our text. All right, well, this is where the lab ends. However, does this not leave some questions unanswered? Okay, well, now it's in one of the teammates' GitHub account. We've got it here. We've added the collaborators, right? You can, like I said, you can come to settings, collaborators. Here's where you would add your buddies, right? Your teammates for your team. You could manage the private repository here. Again, everyone has the personal access token, right? And everyone knows the GitHub account that you're going to be pushing to possibly, or maybe you're pushing to your own GitHub account. But let's do this, right? So you're working on your portion of the project. And so this is what I thought, they left out. So here we are, right? So let's say I want to make some changes. Now you can make the changes in VS Code. I'm just going to use VI. And let's come in here and I'm going to say, now this is on GitHub. I used my personal access token. This is my personal access token. And let's see if we can actually get it pasted in here. I think it's still in the buffer, and there it is, right? All right. So just like the local examples, right? I'm doing the changes here locally. If I say git status, what do we see? Hey, I'm tracking as part of the GitHub repo in this directory. I'm tracking that file. Well, let's go ahead and do the git commit -a to do the add -m for the comment. And what were we going to say? Let's just say, added some new stuff. Couple exclamation marks. All right, so git status. And there we go. On branch master, right? The primary branch, nothing to commit. The tree is clean. However, we come over to GitHub, right? Let's go back into our repo here. And, well, wait a minute. This is still shown 14 minutes ago. Well, that's because we haven't pushed, right? And even if I refresh here, I don't see the changes, right? Remember, yes, we've got this repo up here. You can think of it as like the cloud, right? We've got a repo at GitHub in the cloud, and I've got this local file, but what didn't I do? Right, remember, we need to push things, right? So I don't know how far back that git push command was, but there it is, git push origin from the, so I'm pushing to the origin that I defined, which is GitHub, and I'm pushing it from this this master branch here. And in fact, I may be saying that backwards actually. So Travis P. Bonfili, let's hit enter. Let's paste in. And there we go. And so now when I go back to GitHub and I click refresh, so a minute ago, this file had been changed. Now let's look at it, and there you have it. So that's what you would have to do. You'd make the change on your local machine here, and then you would push, right, that change up. And real quickly here, I'm going to say git push -- help. I want to make sure I'm saying this in the right direction. Updates remote ref using local refs while sending objects necessary. Completely give the refs. You make it interesting with things. Okay, and I just wanted to see. So the repository is the remote repository. Because when I'm saying origin, I just want to make sure I'm saying that correctly, that the origin, and let's actually search for origin. And that's original. Let's do next. Yeah, so get remote, and we're doing the push to the origin. Yeah, and I think I'm saying that right, that it's the origin references the origin push won't be updated on your repository in a cron job. Yeah, I believe it is the remote source. And again, I'd have to double check that. But that is how you would do it. You would make your changes here. You would do your git push origin master. And that is going to show up here in your GitHub. And remember, in order to generate that personal access token, we come down to settings. We go to developer settings. We go to personal access tokens. We go to tokens classic. You can see I've got 2. So I'm going to revoke all. Type your username to confirm, Travis P. Bonfili. And I understand revoke access to everything. All right, well, that is going to do it. And hopefully this has given you a really good idea and a sense of what it is you're going to need to do here during the course when you get into your team project phase. All right, well, that concludes Lab 3.3.11, Software Version Control with Git. Best of luck, and let me know if you've got any questions. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I hope to see you in the next video.